Make mistakes. He was speeding. I want to see all members of my administration follow the law. That includes Director Milstead.
What you heard there from Governor Ducey is in response to this traffic stop caught on camera back in October. Arizona Department of Public Safety Director Frank Milstead stopped for driving over 90 miles an hour while weaving in and out of traffic.
This is the second major incident involving Colonel Milstead while driving on a highway. 12 News investigated in depth what happened in that first incident back in 2011, and there are still big questions that were never answered. Joe Dana takes us back and tells us what the governor says about that. Joe?
Given the high-profile nature of this crash we're going to tell you about, involving a police chief of a major Arizona agency, one might think that the investigation would be extra thorough, perhaps to avoid an appearance of bias. Frank Milstead was friends with the captain of the fire agency that responded. His father was the former director of DPS, the other responding agency. But instead of caution, it seems the opposite happened here. August 19th, 2011, State Route 87 in Happy Jack. Then Mesa Police Chief Frank Milstead was driving his Porsche Carrera when he rolled it off the highway. Milstead said he swerved to avoid an oncoming truck and trailer making an illegal pass in the rain. Today, Governor Doug Ducey answering questions about that crash.
What my understanding was is that he made a maneuver to save his life in oncoming traffic.
If independent evidence supported that claim, no one might be asking questions today. But there are gaps in that investigation of that crash that were never closed. First, the photo. Take a look. This exclusive photo was provided secretly to 12 News by a source back in 2014 when we conducted our own investigation. Retired Sergeant Harry Ryan worked for LAPD for 23 years, specializing in accident reconstruction.
Obviously, it was taken before the emergency responders got there, because there are no police cars, fire trucks, anything like that around there.
What Ryan questioned was why the two agencies that responded to the crash claimed at the time they didn't take any pictures of the scene. There are none on record. Second, 40 pages of communication between DPS and a dispatcher involving the crash are just plain missing. And there is the absence of a witness. As 12 News learned during its investigation, after the crash, the DPS computer dispatch system identified an eyewitness named Beth, who walked into a fire department and reported what she saw. But there's no mention of Beth in the DPS official report.
Beth who? Did Beth see the wreck? Did Beth have anything to say about it? She was not interviewed for the police report either.
And one more thing, Milstead did not go to the hospital. Former Phoenix Police Assistant Chief Harry Markley, a close friend of Milstead's, told 12 News, law enforcement and medical professionals were on scene. Once their work was complete, I drove Frank to my cabin in order to monitor him, as he had sustained a head injury during the collision. A complaint was later lodged with DPS alleging Milstead was under the influence. When we asked him about that complaint, which was later dismissed,
I don't know what to tell you. I don't drive impaired. I'm a 30-year law enforcement veteran, and I don't drive impaired.
Milstead also wrote off speculation about how the case was handled.
I'm not sure there's anything to be said.
If it involved a police chief, then I would want a deeper investigation. But, not just to indict him, but also to clear him if there's no misconduct involved.
Former 12 News investigative reporter Wendy Halloran covered that story back when it aired. Now, we have asked to interview the director today about the incidents. He has declined. Joe Dana, 12 News.